Hey, it's Captain Tim with Rebel Fishing Alliance. We're talking about how to procure and manage your bait here in Southwest Florida. This particular episode, we're going to be covering how to cast net bait. Now, this is not going to include instruction on how to throw a cast net. We have a separate video for that. I will try and link it down in the comments below. This is how to scout for your bait, the tools that you're going to need, what we keep on the boat for different types of bait, all to do with cast netting, so including chum, fish attractant oil or menhaden oil, the different type sizes nets for different types of baits, things of that nature. Without further ado, let's jump into it. I just wanted to give the right expectation for what this video is and isn't, but let's take a look. So we're going to start with scouting for bait, and I'm going to show you two popular areas via satellite here in Southwest Florida, the first being Picnic Island. When you're targeting bait fish such as PinFish, scaled sardines, threadfin, Pilchards, whitebait, whatever you want to call them, you want to look for these three characteristics. Doesn't matter where it is, if you can find these three characteristics, you will find those types of bait. So number one, healthy grass. Number two, 4 to 6 foot water depth. And number three, channel destructure. What we mean by channel destructure is you've got deep channels surrounding that target area. During tidal movements, these bait fish kind of get pushed up in there. They use that grass for safety, for cover, for areas to forage, things of that nature, and it makes it really easy to throw out some chum, wait for them to all concentrate in one area, throw the net once or twice, and you filled the live well with those types of bait. The second area we're going to show you is just north. It's on the other side of Pine Island Sound, which is Bokeelia Shoals. Again, doesn't matter where it's at. If you can find those three characteristics, healthy grass, 4 to 6 feet water depth, channel destructure, you will find and be able to call in these bait fish relatively easy. But just north here on the map is Charlotte Harbor, and there's a big drop off there, and those shoals are the old remnants of that tidal movement pushing all that sand up, and on the other side of that is where all those bait fish congregate, and there's a deep channel before you get to Bokeelia there. Now let's look at mullet and larger bait fish that are not as prevalent as pinfish, pilchards, and threadfin. You'll find mullet all year long in Southwest Florida, but certain times of year are easier to find and net them than others. I personally love using mullet in spring, which is April through May, and early fall, like September through October, for snook, reds, and tarpon. If it's helpful, go ahead and screenshot this strike plan reference calendar. It's pulled straight from the mullet chapter of our live bait tactics course. When I'm targeting mullet, I focus on mangrove shoreline flats and creek mouths, especially early in the morning and on outgoing tides. Ideally, I want to catch them as they're being flushed out of creeks with the tide. I look for sandy or muddy bottoms near those creek mouths, bonus points if there are oyster beds and mangrove lines nearby. These areas work well for two reasons. First, they create a natural choke point that mullet have to pass through. Second, they're prime habitat for mature Mojarra, another excellent bait option for snook. Now, depending on the time of year and water conditions, two more productive areas to target are one, deep residential canals during the winter. These waters tend to hold a more stable temperature and have less surface area for the wind to cool things down, making them a solid cold weather option. Two, off the beaches during spring and fall migration runs. Look for schools cruising the first trough or staging near sandbars and drop-offs around the passes. These spots are often loaded during peak movement windows. All right, so here is the essential gear that I carry on the boat when cast netting. Dip net, I'm just showing it to you like this. This is actually, since it's tarpon season, I've got the dip net secured in here with a long pole. Just when, there we go. Just when it's hard to do this with one hand and hold the camera, but you get the idea. Pull the pin out and the dip net will come out, but I use this long pole so when I'm in the passes, 2 days before or after a full or new moon, I scoop up past crabs that way. Also fun activity for the kids when they're on the boat. But this is a cast net video, so let's stick with. I keep 2 rope handle buckets. The reason I keep 2 is one that I have this bait. I carry an aerator with me just in case something happens to the live well on the boat. I can keep bait alive, but also I use one bucket as a trash can. Put a trash bag in there, and the second bucket I use for, the bait in when I catch them, cast net them, and then dump them before I dump them in the live well. I carry usually 2 bags of chum. This is our RFA bait fish chum. And we also have our RFA menhaden oil or attractant. I obviously have a raw water wash down, which helps making clean up after cast netting, especially around a grass flat. Very convenient. But I carry 2 nets. Carry a 10-foot, 1.6 pound per square foot mullet net, and I call it my mullet net. So that is a 1-inch square mesh. And then I carry a 1.6 pound per square foot, 10-foot, 1/4-inch inshore. 1/4 inch is for very, very, very small bait, but sometimes those scaled sardines can get so small that in a 1-inch or a 5/8 inch mesh net, it'll just Christmas tree them. They'll get gill hooked and it'll just be a mess to clean up. So generally when I'm going for threadfin, PinFish, scaled sardines, etc., I'm using my 1/4-inch, 1.6 pounds per foot, 10-foot inshore net. This I use for mullet, for Mojarra, for the bigger, faster moving baits, because the 1-inch mesh sinks a lot faster, and of course 10-foot gives you the most spread. Last thing with the chum, and I've had a lot of folks tell me I don't like mixing my chum in my cast net bucket, especially with menhaden oil, because it stains the inside of the bucket. It makes my net stink later if I don't clean it out that well. So we do offer the RFA baitfish chum in what we call the handy container. So you can buy one full the first time, then just keep the container on the boat, and for all your refills, you just use the bag. To put a little bit of chum in there, dip it in the water, mix it up, and then we have the RFA baitfish attractant oil in 2 different, we have it in the squeeze bottle, we have the no mess spray bottle, so this way you can just spritz on some attractant oil to your pre-mixed chum. But also some of our anglers have told us they like the spray bottles because they can use it for both the chum and spraying artificial lures with some menhaden oil for an attractant. But those are the tools and the tricks of the trade that I keep on the boat all the time for cast netting bait here in Southwest Florida. So recommendations on net size for bait for Mojarra, mullet, bigger, faster moving fish that don't necessarily respond to chum, meaning you can't really call them in. You've got to see them and throw on them at the right opportunity. So you need a net that sinks fast. We recommend a 1-inch mesh, a heavy, like a 1.6 pounds per foot, and either 10 or 12 foot spread. 12 foot is restricted in some areas like the Everglades. So at minimum 10 feet, we would like to see 12 feet, but understand certain restrictions. Also being heavier, and a 12-foot net, you get wore out faster when you're throwing it. So you got to take the good with the bad. More spread or get wore out faster. So for smaller bait fish like PinFish, scaled sardines, pilchards, threadfin, we recommend at maximum a 3/8 inch square mesh net. I personally like to use 1/4 inch. That even might be pretty small. That's for very small baits. But down here at certain times of the year in Southwest Florida, the pilchards or scaled sardines can get kind of small. And if you, even with a 3/8 inch mesh net, they'll Christmas tree and it's just a pain to clean up. So that's why I like 1/4 inch. It does sink a little bit slower because it's more denser, but that's also why I recommend the heavier 1.6 pound per foot lead line, and a minimum of a 10-foot net to get as much spread so that you're hauling in as many baits as possible with as minimal throws, because with a heavy net, it wears you out. But this is for smaller bait fish. So now let's get into actually chumming the water. We'll show you how you do that. There you see our RFA bait fish chum and some fish attractant oil, menhaden oil. I didn't get a video of actually, but I just ripped the bag open. I dumped the whole bag into the cast net bucket and put a little bit of seawater in it. And then I add a little bit of menhaden oil. As you can see there, you want like a clay-like consistency so that when you mix it up, you can mash it up into a pretty dense ball that will hold together, and it'll disperse slowly as it falls to the bottom. But like a ball like that, and when you throw it in, it just gets a good dispersion in the water column, and it starts calling that bait in. So we will chum for at least 20 to 30 minutes and just keep an eye on our chum slick in the waterway until we start seeing consistent flashes on the chum. And I'll see if you can actually see it here in the video. Let's take a look.
You can see it a little bit. Ooh.
See all those PinFish, and there's some Threadfin in there. So time to throw the net now that we saw those flashes. Like I said, in a separate video, we'll show you some instruction on throwing the net. But 2 throws, we got what we needed to fish with for that day. We got a good mix of a bunch of PinFish, some scaled sardines, even some threadfins mixed in there. But good quality frisky baits that lasted Zach and I the morning of fishing for 4 to 6 hours. So you follow these principles, finding and cast netting your own bait is not hard at all. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and
Oh, I
we'll
did have
see
a
you
bite
in the
of
next one.
today.